We're spinning. And we are live.
Hello.
Good afternoon. Oh, there we are. It worked. I like it when it works.
I like that you check.
Well, I thought I did a live before this, and I didn't. But anyway, it was fine. It was just me talking to myself.
I love it. Well, you did it on some parallel.
Yeah, some other universe. So welcome, Cara. I don't have our names up here. This is Cara, right?
No, you just big banner.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Above the big banner is Cara, right?
I wonder what we're going to talk about. I don't know. Like,
does anyone know what we're going to talk about?
Or maybe we'll just have that big banner there and we won't talk about it at all. Because if it actually applies to you, it would drive you crazy if we did that.
That would be a great way to ping everybody's OCD.
Yeah.
Don't talk about it.
Yep. In fact, it was funny because one of the graphics for a call that we may or may not mention that's coming up was wrong. And I was like, oh my God, just leave it. People will be so annoyed by it. They'll notice it.
That is so true.
Yep.
They'll choose the call just to come on and tell you.
Or they'll see it because it's like the letters were all flipped around, which would be hilarious. So, what can you play with? If you think you're crazy, how can you have fun with it? That's my question.
I like that. So that's a good place to start because OCD is kind of a place where, at least for me, I thought it was crazy. And
sister.
What?
I said, you and me both, sister. It's been a big one for me for a lot of my adult life, and it kind of went hand in hand with anxiety for me. So OCD is an interesting topic.
So can you tell us a small bit, like what do you mean when you say OCD?
So OCD is basically something that people can be diagnosed with or not diagnosed with. A lot of people know they're OCD, but they've never had a doctor say you are. For me, it ended up being a lot of repetitive things. It ended up being more repetitive when I was at a high level of stress. And my focus was more on things being just so. And if things were just so, then I could then relax. So that's how it showed up for me. But the thing about OCD is it shows up very differently for everyone.
When I was 14, I started to develop this obsessive compulsive thing about cleaning. And I just my sister was only 9 at the time, or no, she wasn't. Sorry, I was 9. Maybe I was 12. She was toddler age, so she was 2. And I had 2 older brothers. And so she was a toddler. She had toys everywhere. She played, she messed everything. And I was constantly going around after her, cleaning everything up. And I had this thing where I couldn't sit down in the sitting room if there was anything on the floor in front of me. If I could see anything on the floor, it would freak me out and I couldn't relax. Yeah. So my brothers saw me after a while, how obsessive I was. So I would walk into the room and they'd see me and they'd throw something on the floor, and just because they knew I couldn't sit down and relax if there was something that on the floor. And I knew what they were doing, but I still couldn't just let it there. I had to pick the shit up before I could sit down and relax. So that was the first
part of the obsessive compulsive behavior. Am I echoing?
A small bit.
Let me see if I put my earphone in.
So that was kind of how it showed up for me, younger, in earlier years. But, I know this now. At the time, I didn't know. I just thought I wanted everything to be tidy. But later on, it developed into more obsessive, in my thinking. I would just become paranoid, or I would fixate on I don't know, a relationship, or think someone hated me, and I would think about it over and over and over. So could we
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that? Like how, like, because a lot of people think obsessive compulsive is just like when you wash your hands excessively or you have to walk in between the marks. And it can be that, but that's how it shows up for you, like mentally as well. And that's usually the one that nobody talks about.
Yes, it does show up mentally. And that's why one of the things that, and basically when we talk about this obsessive compulsive disorder in Access, it's really looking at it from a different perspective and looking at like what's actually going on. Because what people talk about in this reality is like basically the things that people create to handle what it is that they're aware of. So what we talk about as obsessive compulsive is really the it's like people's coping mechanisms. And when we talk about it in Access, we actually look at like, okay, what is it actually? If it wasn't a wrongness, what's actually going on? And so for me and for a lot of people, like you're talking about having the mental just things over and over and over and over again. And a lot of times that's just a level of awareness that is beyond most people. And it's what you're aware of that is incongruent with what's actually going on. Like the thing where things go on in your head, especially if it has to do with someone else, that can be because you're aware of an incongruent energy with that person, that they're saying one thing but doing another, or they're saying there's a lie attached with whatever it is that they're talking about, and you're aware of that. And so then it just continues to play over and over and over and over again. There's so many elements to obsessive compulsive disorder, and if you look at it from it's actually an energetic capacity, you can really start to kind of unravel things and go, okay, so what am I actually aware of here that I've not been acknowledging that is creating whatever the thing is? Washing of the hands, having to make sure something's turned off like a bazillion times, which is the one that shows up for me a lot. It's been really interesting with this COVID experience, and I've been home so much more that now when I leave my house, I notice like my compulsion to make sure everything is just so before I leave has like really heightened. And the other thing that we talk about with this particular energy is like, how aware are you of other people as well? Like if you get really used to being in your home and then you go to leave it, it's weird. I mean, nobody really wants to say that that's been weird for them, but I really get it's been weird for people. But nobody wants to go around and go like, I kind of think I'm agoraphobic now, and I just don't ever want to go anywhere. No one's saying that out loud, but I'll tell you what, it's happening because that shit's showing up dynamically in my world right now, and I know it's because I'm aware of something. I'm not crazy, but I'm aware of a lot of things. So it shows up that I have this like, oh God, I have to go check all the outlets again. I have to go check to make sure my curling iron's on, even though I didn't curl my hair.
In that instance, like in that situation, what's a question you ask, or what is it like?
Yeah. So
yeah.
First of all, I acknowledge it. Because you all, like, if you have this in your life, if you have this propensity to do obsessive compulsive things, it's an energy you're familiar with. You know when you're in the midst of it, or it's right there and you could choose it. And so I acknowledge it. And then I look at like, okay, what am I perceiving right now? And I get really present with that question, because if I just asked it and went on, the thing about obsessive compulsive, like it's pretty intense. So it's very easy to like do a tool and then have it not do anything, because it's like the tool is this tiny little thing and the obsessive compulsive thing is way up here. So it's like, be present with that. Like, what are you actually perceiving? And then, ask what's required. I mean, one of the things that I do, because my husband and I both know that this can show up for me. So I will say to him, babe, when I ask you 10 minutes from now, if this is turned off, please tell me yes. So I mean, I also have enough allowance for myself from like, okay, like something's going on in my world and I'm just going to be like, okay, cool. Like, honey, I turned my curling iron off. When I freak out about it in 30 minutes from now, you can let me know that I actually turned it off. So there's also practical things you can do as well. Like if it wasn't wrong, what could you create with it? I've made Amy speechless.
I'm leaving it digest because you're saying a lot here, and I'm not sure how much people are hearing, but they're like that. I mean, wow, if you weren't wrong, what's the capacity here? And one of the things I love, Cara, about you and the body of work, which is Access, and the body of work spin off from Access, which is X-Men, which is these conversations are coming from like the body of work called X-Men, which is part of Access, which is looking at all this stuff as a capacity, is that like I really did really believe and think I was just crazy. Like I'm just crazy. I'm just insane. And one of the things I got from this work too was like I would rather make myself think that I'm crazy than acknowledge I was aware of the insanity in other people's worlds. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that obsessive compulsive thinking or, mind racing was me being aware of other people's realities and not actually just acknowledging it.
Mm-hmm. And also trying to like figure it out and trying to like change it when it's not even you, and all of the things that can really create someone who has a level of awareness that a lot of people who have this disability ability, someone who has that level of awareness, there's always going to be information in their awareness. Like there's always going to be stuff there. So it's like how much, like what can you actually pick and put your attention on, and what can you do to like never mind the things that aren't actually relevant to you. There's so many different tools you can use.
And this is then the piece where you bring in the OCC, which is Obsessive Compulsive Creator. Like, and we're going to get into this and explore this in the telecall with you, which is OCD versus OCC. So
yeah.
Is the Obsessive Compulsive Creator, is that how you've learned to deal with the Obsessive Compulsive disorder? Or like,
it's really just a change in perspective, right? So it's like the capacity is a level of awareness that is beyond most people. So it's like, anywhere from 1,000 to 8,000 miles in all directions, you're aware of all energies. What a lot of us do is get kind of focused on the real loud, real intense, real, what is that energy? The things that are, like loud. And often those are the things that are a little bit more destructive. Then you could also look at like, oh, what else am I aware of that actually matches the future that I would like to create? Because you have as many of those things in your awareness. It's not like you're only aware of the crazy. You're aware of all the other stuff too. It's just crazy tends to be louder. So it's really like a re-aiming and an awareness and like a building of a muscle of choosing the energies that actually will create the future is possible, instead of the ones that don't.
And it's almost like, I love that piece because it's like you choose what you want to feed into. Like, so what I've learned a lot in dealing with the OCD thing is like, when it comes up, I just go, okay, like, do I want to go into this? And do I want to keep like feeding into this? Or do I actually want to create what I'd like to create? And then and then I go into the creation, which you have taught me, like, keep adding, like, what else can you add? And when I go into creation, okay, let me put my energy on a project, or let me call a friend who I know is creative, who I can talk about creation with, or let me go to yoga, or just do something that gets me in that creation. And it shifts, because what you're saying, I love what you're saying too, because it's like the crazy is so loud and the creation is so light. And it's like, it's just a choice, right?
It is. And it's that one of the things we talk about, especially with X-Men, is that X-Men, people who have these particular energetic capacities, tend to be a lot of space. They tend to not have a lot of points of view. They're very different from what you run into out in the world. And so if you're an X-Men and you're looking at the future you'd like to create, it's not going to be like these really intense, like rah, 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 energies. It's going to be more like space and lightness and ease. And then it's like, okay, choosing that as opposed to like the thing that you can hear in your neighbor's head that's just loud and annoying. And you're like, what is going on? For me, like that is always a bit of a trigger. Like when I start to go into the figuring it out or wondering why, or that will start something for me because I'm actually, that's like a lie and a heavy energy that I'm trying to do something with. So, and those are the things that we're going to talk about on the call. It's like everybody has a little bit different way of being with this energy, and everyone has a little bit different way that they've probably disabled themselves a bit with it. And they also have a different way that they could actually create with it. So everyone is different. And until you start to actually like look at how you are, you won't know what you are.
I love that because that's one of the things, you know, we've been noticing even in the run up to this class. Like Becky's on here and she's like, looking at, what should she say? Something like, I'm glad I'm not OCC. I'm just like, or OCD. She, you know, she thinks she's not OCD, like, but, and a lot of people say to me, oh, I'm not OCD. And like, you're like, yeah, right. You know, because it's like you said, it shows up differently for everyone, you know? And, and like, isn't it like when, you know, like you're like a dog with a bone, you get the bone, like, it shows up differently for everyone. And
it does.
I like how you said that, like it shows up differently for everyone and how you can use it as a capacity will be different for everyone.
Totally.
So I'm really excited to explore that. Yeah. And also just that piece too, as well, like, about like the heaviness and the insanity and all that, because there is a lot of that going on in the world right now. And I noticed, you know, like a lot of people like feed into it.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like, because you said as an X-Men, like none of that is actually real for you. Like what's more real is space, but it's almost like space in this reality is wrong. Like, you know, you're supposed to have a point of view. You're supposed to be crazy or insane about something. You're supposed to be fighting for a cause or something.
You know? I know. You can't just be like,
enjoy glory.
So, you know, again, that's like another way that if you have this, because it's literally how you're wired. It isn't like, it's just like some people, you know, are born with the ability to be good at particular athletics, or they're born with the ability to be good at the violin. Like there are people who are born wired to be very aware of energies and be very aware of like their attention and looking at the energy like exponentializes it. And so if you're not told that, and you don't practice or build the muscle of putting your attention on the things that are going to create for you, like the world is a pretty intense place. You could really pick up on a lot of things and obsess about them that are never going to create for you.
Yeah, and aren't even creating the world you want to have.
Yeah. So.
Oh, wow. I'm really excited too. So we start on Tuesday.
Yes, tomorrow. This time tomorrow, we will be like in it.
Digging in. And so is there any prereqs for this?
There's no prereqs. Obviously, like having a little awareness of access consciousness and the clearing statement and things like that would be great, but nope, there's no prereqs.
Amazing. And then, so we'll post the link below for anyone who wants to read more or join the telecall if they want. And also, like, if people are just hearing this conversation for the first time, Cara, and they've never heard about X-Men or Access or anything like that, where would you send them first to learn more about X-Men and OCD and all this stuff?
Yeah, because I'm not the only facilitator in the world. There are a few of us. And so you can go to accessconsciousness.com/X-Men, and there's a bunch of information on there. There's also information about different facilitators, where they are in the world, what they have going on. It's an amazing body of work that may give you a lot more space and freedom to choose who you are. So
yeah, I know everyone like who finally takes an X-Men class afterwards are like, oh my God, I changed everything.
I was the same way. I didn't find the X-Men body of work until probably 4 or 5 years after starting to do Access. So, and when I found it, felt the same way. I was like, how did I not know about this stuff? So
Yeah,
if you're curious, check it out.
Well, thanks for joining me today, Cara.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
No.
We'll post the links below, so if anyone has any other questions. And you can always, where can people find you, Cara?
Well, obviously they can find me on Facebook, and I also have a website, caraawright.com. So they can find me there. Reach out to me that way.
Brilliant. And she's also got like you've got your Cara Wright CF page, and you've got like a playlist of videos on X-Men and tips for X-Men, which are really great as well. And also, just aware of some people on this too who also have kids who are X-Men. So these are also great tools to use with your kids as well.
Oh my gosh. I wish I would have had them for myself. And I have 2 nieces that are X-Men that it's such a gift. It's just a gift to really be able to see them for who they are and not have the expectation that they be different, and what that actually creates for them is beyond.
Yeah. It's really incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, check her out, Cara Wright.
Check me out.
Check her out. X-Men playlist. All right, guys. Thanks very much.
Bye, guys.
Bye.